Hello, everybody. I'm Skip Alsheimer. Welcome to the AV Geeks Lunchtime Streaming Show, where we watch old 16mm films and forget to mute our browser that we use for a audio sound check. The imagery in that film strip, I love it. All the film strip of the month film strips that I have are so good. So good. I know that you guys miss me. We had some crazy weather that came through right during lunch, and we ended up not losing power significantly, but it's a gamble, and we've certainly had it go out in this neighborhood because we have a lot of trees. So, and there's trees all around our neighborhood. So, but I know you're missing our favorite marionettes in Iran, the Middle East. Thankfully, they're back. Here's Hoja and the Thief. Enjoy.
Here is a window, in your own village perhaps, or in a nearby town. If only we could look inside. Ah, thank you. That is much better. Now we don't have to guess at all, for this is obviously our favorite coffee house. Hamid, the young radical, is sitting alone, instead of with our friends Burhan and the wise Sheikh. But what is the news they are so anxious to hear? It must be very important if Hamid has stopped talking to listen.
The fighting, which has just broken out in another Asian country. Disorder and panic are sweeping the capital city as government officials flee for their lives from the wild gunfire of the heavily armed rebels. There can be no doubt that these rebels are being reinforced by a certain power.
Bah, the government of that country was no good. It is high time they were thrown out of office.
Hamid, if you don't mind.
Coming over northern borders and spraying the roads with machine gun bullets as thousands of helpless people flee the cities. Earlier today, it was made known from the north that a certain...
They deserve it all. The people of that country live in a rotten society. A revolution is the only path to progress.
It's too bad we can't turn you off with a click of the switch.
What appeared to start as rioting against the traditional government by a small radical party has now turned into armed warfare on a full scale, directed by foreign military officials and supported by the powerful war machines of the country to the north.
This is progress, not war.
I know, Hamid. Whoever resists the coming of new radical governments must be pushed aside.
The people are to blame for resisting progress, and so is their rotten government, which permits such out-of-date ideas as religion, private business, and different political parties.
Hamid, are you blaming this violence on the very government and people who are being attacked?
Who else could possibly be to blame?
Perhaps these outside powers who have been trying to spread their radical way of life by any means are the ones we should blame for all this killing and violence.
I look where the trouble is for the cause, not in outside countries.
Aha, I see. You would let the thief run free to do more damage. The thief, Effendi? Yes. I was remembering a story about Nasruddin Hoja, a thief, and some villagers who did not put blame where it was due. Listen, Hamid, there is a lesson in this story for you. One soft summer night long ago, the silvery moonbeams that played among the shadows were not the only visitors in Nasruddin Hoja's village. On this particular night, Nasruddin was halfway through a most enjoyable dream when he woke himself up and called to his wife.
Quick, woman, my spectacles. I want my spectacles.
Answering his wife's angry protest, the Hoja explained.
I'm having a beautiful dream and I must see one or two things more clearly.
But by now, the Hoja's dream was gone, and the only thing he could see clearly was the face of a thief.
Help, thief! I've been robbed. There's a thief in the village. Stop him! Stop the thief! Help! Help! Thief! I've been robbed! Help!
Outside the Hoja's house, the villagers finally learned the sad news. Nasruddin's donkey had been stolen. But instead of sympathizing with him, his neighbors grew more and more indignant.
Come now, Hoja. Was your door locked? Ha! Look at that. What do you expect when you don't have an iron bolt on your door?
A second villager was even more incensed.
You call yourself a wise man. You do not teach your donkey to bray when a thief approaches? Anyone can learn to bray. Hee-haw!
This was by no means the end of their advice.
Ha! Just as I thought. Why didn't you build a bigger and stronger fence around your donkey, Hoja? This one would blow down in a stiff breeze.
By this time, Nasruddin was both confused and unhappy. His precious donkey was gone, and all he heard was criticism.
Another thing, Hoja. Not only should you have put a strong lock on the courtyard door, you should have known enough to take the key to bed every night and hide it under your pillow.
This was the last straw. Cutting the villagers short, the Hoja invited them to leave his house at once. Watching them go, the Hoja had a final word of advice for them.
You tell me about a better lock, a stronger fence, my donkey trained to sound an alarm and what to do with the key. And you blame these things on me, the victim. But what about the thief? Isn't he to blame at all?
Before they could answer, the villagers learned that each of them, too, had been robbed in the night, while they had been busy lecturing Nasruddin. Forgetting the Hoja, the villagers fled back to their own homes, but his words rang out after them.
What about the thief? Isn't he to blame? Isn't the thief to blame? Hamid is not listening. What a shame. The most ignorant are the last to learn.
But we are all wiser now when we hear of free nations suddenly exploding in revolution. People are well aware that the foreign power which gives weapons to local radicals will demand in return that these same radicals and party line followers come to rule when the fighting is ended. Yes, Burhan, this is a great power expanding violently, no matter how they try to disguise it as local revolutions. But as long as we know enough to put the blame for outbreaks of violence where the blame is due, we can protect ourselves from the true danger. This is what the simple lesson of Nasruddin Hoja means to us today.
Wow. Yeah. It's great. Some of you talked about the Jerry Anderson animation, or the puppet nation, or I can't remember what he called it. Dynamation. Anyways, they all kind of can blur together. I think Jerry Anderson's stuff is all this wonderful intrigue and spine that shows up in a couple in like Thunderbirds and other things, but also this optimistic view of the future, and all the Hoja things are about imperialism. So it's really kind of fascinating. So this is a weird Coronet film, and maybe you can help me figure out why it just sits so weird. I've never heard of it before, and that's one of the great things in scanning a bunch of this stuff is we're finding titles that never got big distribution, and so this one is like, huh? So maybe you can help me put the finger on why this is not a typical Coronet film. This is Bear Hunt. Enjoy.
When the editor of the town paper announced a snapshot contest, he didn't know what he was starting. Tom and Martha are a lively pair of kids. When they get it into their heads to enter a contest, you can just bet things will start popping. Their friends, Officer Mulligan and Captain Sweeney, might guess that they too would get involved in the contest, even though they are very dignified men. On the way to Tom's house to get his camera, the kids discuss what kind of picture might win the contest. Maybe a handsome shot of the new town hall. Maybe a fancy portrait of the mayor. Oh, but what's this? There's something here. And the contest is forgotten. Well, what do you know? A polar bear's skin. Now, it so happens that Herman Hustlewaite has chosen this time to deliver groceries to Tom's house. Yes, sir. Herman has come to deliver the groceries. Now, you might not think so to look at him, but Herman is a very bright boy. He's been to school. If anyone tried to tell Herman that he'd ever meet... Anyway, Herman did deliver the groceries. Now Herman has different ideas about polar bears. Mr. Howard, a neighbor of Tom's, gets a look. He thinks it's a good joke. And Herman Well, you know about him. Mrs. Winkleton is another neighbor. Probably she also thinks that polar bears belong in zoos. Yes, no doubt, that's what she thinks. Coming back from Mrs. Winkleton's, Martha remembers the snapshot contest. Why not take the bearskin down in the woods and set up a real action picture? I'll wear my hunting cap, says Tom, and we'll pretend it's a bear hunt. Mrs. Winkleton is not pretending. It's a real bear. She saw it. Even if she does have trouble speaking calmly enough to explain matters to the police. Yes, sir, when the editor announced that snapshot contest, he little knew he was starting a bear hunt. Now, Captain Sweeney and Officer Mulligan had their doubts about this wild polar bear. They figured it was probably some big white cat that had frightened Mrs. Winkleton. But they answered the call with promptness and with dignity. As I said, they're very dignified men. That right? Says Captain Sweeney. A bear. Well, we'll catch him. Hey, Mulligan? Well, there might be. What do you know about bears? Mrs. Winkleton knows plenty. She saw... Look here. The bear's footprint. No doubt about it now. We'll take over, Mrs. Winkleton, says Captain Sweeney. All right, Mulligan, we'd better take notes. Who's got a pencil? I have to keep notes. You got a notepad? Must keep notes. Well, we don't need any notes. Now we'll circle the house and creep up on the bear. You go that way, I'll go this way. Suppose you go this way. I'll go that way. At this crucial moment, Mrs. Winkleton spies an old friend coming down the street. None other than Professor Winthrop J. Beebe. As anyone can tell by looking at him, Professor Beebe knows more about bears than, well, than bears know about Professor Beebe. Back from their diligent search of the grounds, Sweeney and Mulligan are ready to give up the hunt. But Mrs. Winkleton isn't giving up. Neither is the professor. He's just warming up to showing these policemen some real detective work. Aha! Bear hair. No time to lose. Mrs. Winkleton, you get a large pan. Officers, you wait here. I shall return at once. A quick lesson in camera technique, and Martha's all set to take that prize snapshot of Tom, the big bear hunter. There, that ought to win a prize. Or will it? Anyway, it's been hard work and Martha's thirsty. So away to the spring. Well, Mrs. Winkleton has the pan the professor asked for. Sweeney and Mulligan still have their dignity, or most of it. And the professor, what does he have? Yes, it's bear bait. Now, maybe the professor isn't really as crazy as some people think. He has spent a lifetime studying the habits of various wild animals. He knows the particular foods that different animals prefer. The special blend of foods in the pan is known to be especially attractive to bears. That's right, bears. Goodbye, Professor. Goodbye. So that's the end of the bear hunt. Or is it? Unseen by the officers, Martha and Tom return from the spring. Their picture made, they're all set to take the bearskin and stuffing and return home. While the hunters stalk their prey. It's a heavy load, though, and a steep hill. while the hunters stalk their prey. The kids park the bearskin while they cart the rest of the stuff up the hill. While the hunters, moving stealthily, come ever closer. Tom sees them. Now for a real picture. Yes, sir, that's how Tom got his picture of the bear hunt. A picture of those gentlemen of great dignity. Oh, yes, of course it won the contest.
I don't know, some of you noticed it seemed a little zany, a little too wacky for a cornet. Maybe in the late 60s or 70s, because there's not a clear educational message here. So this falls into the language arts, and unfortunately I didn't have program notes for this, so our teacher's notes said this is what we hope to teach the kids. So my guess is that this is something that it's a story, and then it gets kids excited, and then you get them to write their own story about whatever. So that's my take. All right, what do we got? Some plants are very different, but surprisingly many are very alike. This film will tell us more about that. Enjoy. This is a cornet film. It's clear what it is. Enjoy.
One day in spring, Karen and her brother Larry went with Dad to a plant nursery to buy some seeds for their garden. So many beautiful plants. There were tall plants and short plants. There were plants growing in the sunlight and plants growing in shade. There were so many kinds of plants. Larry knew a little about some of them. He knew that large plants like trees and medium-sized plants like shrubs and bushes, and smaller plants like these with colorful flowers. Karen knew the name of these plants, which they had grown in their garden last year. They are petunias. Some have white flowers, some have dark red, but they all have the same shape. Then Larry noticed something else. The petunia has a different shape than this flower on a nearby plant, and this one is different from this one on still another plant. So different plants have different kinds of flowers. Differences are often easy to see. But plants are alike in certain ways, too. All the plants growing here, no matter what their size or shape, are alike in one way. They all need food to live and grow. The white patches on the log are plants, too. They are called fungi. Fungi usually grow in damp, shady places, like a forest. There are many kinds of fungi. They take their food from dead or decaying matter. Mushrooms are one kind of fungi we may be familiar with. One way all fungi are alike is that they don't have the green coloring matter called chlorophyll. All green plants have chlorophyll, which they use in making their own food from minerals in the soil and from water, air, and sunlight. Chlorophyll gives most stems and leaves of plants their familiar green color. Larry wanted to know how green plants get the minerals and other materials they need to make their food. Let's see how a plant like this tree gets some of the materials it needs to make food. If we take the covering off, we'd see the soil in which the tree is growing. And if we could look into this soil, we'd see the roots of the tree. Minerals and water from the soil move into the roots and then up into the stem of the tree. The trunk of a tree is its stem. Through the stems of green plants, minerals and water pass into their leaves. Leaves are another way in which most green plants are alike. In the leaves is most of the chlorophyll which green plants use to make food. So most green plants are alike in three ways. They have leaves, stems, and roots. But if green plants have leaves, stems, and roots, why don't they all look alike? Mainly because over many thousands of years, green plants have developed in different ways. Let's see some of these differences. We'll look at some different kinds of roots first. Roots, we know, help green plants take in minerals and water. The roots of trees usually grow deep down in the soil and help keep these large plants from toppling over. The roots of some green plants, however, don't grow as deep. Let's look at this grass that's just been dug up. Many of the grasses we use for our lawns have shallow roots. They spread out just below the top of the ground. These roots often cross and crisscross each other like a mat. They help hold the soil together and keep it from being washed or blown away. Many garden flowers have a main root that grows down into the soil. If we visited a farm at harvest time, we'd see that many vegetable plants have main roots too. Vegetables like carrots, radishes, and turnips have main roots which store much of the food the plants make. We use such roots for our own food. Now, what about different kinds of stems of green plants? Vines are sometimes called climbing plants because as they grow, their long stems cling to a wall or other support. The large vine on this house has stems that twine around supports to hold the plant up. Some vines, like the morning glory with its flowers, twine around larger, more sturdy plants. The thin stems of the morning glory grow tightly around the larger, stronger plant. Most of the larger green plants, like shrubs and bushes, have stems that are stiff and woody. And of course, trees too have hard, woody stems like this. Many smaller green plants have softer stems. Some green plants have unusual stems that grow underground. Many of our garden flowers, like lilies, tulips, and gladiolus, grow from underground stems. Underground stems are sometimes called bulbs. Roots and leaves grow from an underground stem. And what about some of our vegetable plants? That part of the onion plant we eat is an underground stem. These potatoes are underground stems, too. Now that we've seen different kinds of stems and roots, let's look at leaves. These water lilies have leaves that float on water. What else can we notice about them? They are green, like all green leaves that make food. On the underside, we can see the veins that carry the food materials of the leaf. What other plants have broad, flat leaves? Some of the green plants we eat, like lettuce, have large, broad leaves. Many kinds of trees have flat, broad leaves. Such leaves are very common among trees that lose their leaves in the autumn. These leaves make enough food during the spring and summer to keep the trees alive during the winter after the leaves fall. But some trees are different in that they have leaves that stay on the tree all year. Trees with such leaves are called evergreens. This spruce tree is an evergreen, and here are its leaves. They are long, thin, and pointed. These are found on many evergreen trees. But the children didn't come to buy trees today. They came to buy seeds. All seeds, like the ones they're going to plant in their garden, are the beginnings of new plants. Here are some of the different kinds of flowers and vegetables they want to grow. Are the seeds different too? Let's see. The seeds have different sizes and shapes. These are petunia seeds. And these are seeds of the zinnia. Here are carrot seeds. And here are watermelon seeds. Seeds may be of different sizes and shapes, but all are alike in that they are the beginnings of new plants. Larry and Karen helped select the seeds they'd like to grow in their garden this year. They know that the green plants which grow from seeds will be alike in some ways and different in some ways. How many ways can you think of that plants are different and alike?
See, that's what I'm used to. That's the narrator, the clear message, the whole thing. That's what we're used to with Cornette. But Bear Hunt didn't have... It had a narrator, but it was a weird concept. Anyways, here's another one. This was not made by Cornette, but was distributed by Cornette. And I think this was distributed in either late 60s or early 70s. It is I Am a Runner. Enjoy.
Look at their hobby or whatever you want to call it as a way of life, and they just keep running, and they, once they get a sense of physical well-being, they want to keep that up. Whether or not they're competitively at their best or not, they want to keep running. I run because deep down inside I love to run. You are what you do, and I choose to run, so I am a runner.
us have been running for a while, I guess we're pretty much thinking the same thing. How can we improve? How do we learn to run faster? And does it ever get easier?
Yeah, I think that you can really improve tremendously by leaps and bounds after you've gotten this initial base of, let's say, a year or two of running once a day. And ways to do that are to do more hill work, to do speed work on the track, which is what they call interval training. So you run a certain distance at a faster pace, then jog very slowly, do several sets of that. Or else you can do what they call fartlek. You go out on the roads and change your pace and vary your pace, slow, fast, maybe walk a little, that sort of thing. Those are all different methods. Or you can always try working out twice a day if you've got the time. That'll really bring fantastic improvements.
The body has to learn to adjust to this stress, but then you also need some recovery in between. And I think if you tax your system in some way, whether it be through hill workouts, whether it be through track workouts, intervals, even endurance, doing long distances, your body is going to adjust. It's going to be able to take the new loads as long as you give yourself recovery in between to rest, and it will get better.
And I think after you've been running for a while, maybe a year or two, then start experimenting with different terrains like hill work, trying to integrate some, not too steep a hill, but something with a moderate grade, and something that's not too stressful that you can adapt to pretty easily in your training workout.
Fartlek is a Swedish word. It means speed play. It's a very effective workout. For example, Gail Barron and her husband often practice it, and she's one of the top marathoners in the country, hates any kind of track work. So what they do is they'll go out on a run, which most of the time they're taking a very steady pace, and they'll put bursts of speed where for maybe 400 yards, 440 yards, they'll run towards an object at a specific pace that they want to do, whether it be race pace, whether it be above race pace, and then get to this object, and then you rest again. You do an easy pace jog. You then might want to do a sprint. They'll pick up and do maybe a 100-yard sprint or a 200-yard sprint. And it's a constant speed play. It's a lot of fun if you hate tracks. It's especially fun on cross-country trails to do something like this.
And hill running can be very, very effective. A good workout might be to run up a moderate incline fairly hard, and then when you get to the top, turn right around and jog back down again. Repeat this 8 to 10 times, and then finish the session off with an easy jog down. You have to be careful going downhill always. There's always a risk of turning an ankle or pulling something. Okay, here's a slow motion shot of Bill Rogers running uphill. Bill is one of the world's finest distance runners. Notice his exaggerated arm motion, and notice how hard he's pushing off with his legs. Also, he's leaning nicely into the hill.
If you want to get involved in competition, that sort of thing, you can always join what they call fun runs, which are not so competitive. They're more for fun, but they'll be about 2 miles long, 3 miles long. And I wouldn't recommend people to begin their racing program with a marathon. Begin with 2, 3, 5-mile runs. And I would do that for a year or a couple of years. I didn't run my first marathon until I've been running for 10 years. So I would say that you have plenty of time always ahead of you to experiment with the long ones.
One important thing which sometimes is overlooked is running style. A smoother flow, less excess energy being put out will make you run smoother and go faster. You want to concentrate on rhythm with the arms, a rhythm in your running. They say that running starts with the arms. And you want to think of landing, this is for racers now, not for beginners, but more up on your foot rather than just the heel. And you want to go smoothly, not up and down, not choppy. And I think that the better your style, the more efficient you'll be all around. Probably one of the better things to do is to actually just sit down and watch some of your better runners. Watch how they run. Watch their body motion. Go to a track where you know maybe a coach is going to be coaching a college team, and just watch some of the better runners.
Tomorrow, these women will be running in a championship race. They're the finalists from the Bonnie Bell 10K Road Race Series. 10K, or 10 kilometers, is a distance of just over 6 miles. And some of these top competitors will be completing the course in 32 or 33 minutes. Some of of these women have had track and cross-country experience in high school and college, yet others are marathoners and rarely compete on the track. Depending on which events they're training for, they'll run between 60 and 110 miles a week. About 10% of that will be all-out speed work, fast running, and then the other will be moderately paced runs of various lengths, 5, 10, 18 miles. Before running, they always do some stretching exercises. This is helpful in keeping the body in balance and also, most important, to prevent injury. Then after stretching, they do some jogging warm-up, maybe 10 or 20 minutes of that before they begin their workout. What we're going to do this morning is do some slow-motion film studies of these runners. And then we'll have John Babington, coach of the Liberty Athletic Club, critique some of the styles.
This is Chris Lavallee. She's a very versatile runner. She runs the 1,500 meters well, the 800, 3,000. She's good at 10,000 meters, and she holds the Canadian women's marathon record. Her style is easy and relaxed, nice low. She swings those hands just past the hips. Smooth, efficient stride, not too bouncy. Keeps herself nicely in balance. But good runners don't always have perfect style. Here comes Mary Shea. Her form is quite unconventional. Her head has a tendency to tilt over to one side, as you can see. Mary's form isn't that smooth. You'd have to say that she's asymmetrical. But somehow all those motions fit together in such a way that she gets great results. If I were coaching her, I'd be very hesitant to tamper with her form. This is Marty Cooksey. She's not very big, but there's a lot of power in that stride. Notice her typical distance runner's stride. Not a very long stride, but she takes more steps per minute. It's a very compact style. Marty is relatively new to running, but she's one of the finest American women road racers ever. She's the national marathon champion and does extremely well in the shorter distances also. But, though, this is interesting. Look at what her feet do as she runs toward us. Look at that little flip in her foot just before it strikes the ground. I couldn't begin to say exactly what effect that has on her running, but it certainly is interesting. Also, notice that her left leg tilts in slightly. The leg is not completely vertical at the moment it strikes the ground. And that foot wiggle could be a compensation for that. In fact, it probably is. Here comes Ruth Caldwell. Ruth is the national 800-meter champion. She specializes in short, fast races. She's running here in her training flats and at a 10,000-meter pace. She's landing on about the middle of her foot, and her stride is not particularly long at this pace. Now Ruth is running in her spike shoes, her racing shoes, and closer to her 800-meter race pace. Notice the difference. Here her feet kick back much higher, her arms are much more active, and her stride is much longer. Yet she's not really in the air that much. See how smoothly she's running. She's landing more on her toes, yet not bouncing. She's almost skimming along. Now, this type of stride would be inefficient in a very long distance run. This type of stride tires out the muscles very quickly. But it's definitely the fastest way to get from the start to the finish in a shorter race.
This is Mary Rodriguez, whose first race was a year and a half ago, the Bonnie Bell race in New York. She's lost a lot of weight, and she's gotten a lot faster in her running. But let's look at her style.
She's a very hard-working runner, but perhaps she's trying a little too hard. Look at those clenched fists. Actually, her legs are quite relaxed, but from the waist up, there's a little too much tension. Relaxation is often a problem for a beginning runner. It's something that sprinters have to learn as well as marathoners. But there are little tricks you can play on yourself. As you're running along, you can ask yourself, are my facial muscles relaxed? Do my shoulders and neck muscles feel nice and relaxed? Are my arms loose? You can shake your arms out just for a second, just to give yourself a feeling of relaxation. You can check your hands to make sure that they're not flopping around, but that your fists aren't clenched too tight either. Just try to maintain an overall feeling of relaxation and smoothness as you run along. Actually, your running style, though, will pretty much take care of itself. Just keep at it and enjoy it.
It's important to have a well-rounded training program, to do stretching exercises after you run. Some before would be helpful also. To have a good pair of shoes with good cushioning, to run on grass or dirt surfaces, like we see here around the pond. Stay away from concrete, and don't increase your mileage too soon. You have to build up very slowly, which is the major thing I'm emphasizing. If you want to improve, the only way to really do it is through consistency and moderation. You can't do it through an intense program really quick. No one's ever done it that way. Your body just won't take it. It'll quit on you.
I think that races are the reward, and I don't think anyone should deprive themselves of that pleasure. You put in all that training, and what is it for? What is it about? It's to prepare, to go out and take the test, run the race, see how good you are, see where you stand.
On race day, Jacqueline Hansen, one of America's great distance runners, was on hand. We asked her to tell us something about the race, and if she could, pass along a few tips about racing technique and strategy.
When thinking about getting into the actual race, it's important to plan it out exactly what you want to do.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You have to think about what's a conceivable pace to run. What kind of a time are you capable of doing at any given time in your training? Pick a goal. If you're on pace, it's very important to not go out too fast as much as it's, not to go out too slow. But it's something you have to think about before you get to the starting line.
4,524 runners, everybody. Let them know what you think.
This race was definitely a major event. It was a major thing in several different senses. One, that we had 4,500 women out there running. That is a social phenomenon, perhaps. But we also had the very highest quality number of runners that I've seen in one given race. And this is why I think it's really exciting to see a women's only race, because they get the due recognition. It is their event. They're on the front line. They get the good positions. They get first grab at the aid stations. They get all their splits. They get to break the tape first. It appeared to me to be maybe the youngest, fastest field going. A lot of them have come up from track background, and I think that's why we're seeing records dropping in the 10 kilometers, because we're seeing milers and cross-country runners running 10,000 meters. And I think that now we're beginning to see the product of collegiate running programs, high school running programs. We're beginning to see some results. The race started in the Boston Common and went down Charles Street and over the Longfellow Bridge. By the first mile, there was a good, healthy pack of, including like Elizabeth Berry, Marty Cooksey, Chris Laval, Karen Bridges, Joan Benoit, and Betty Springs.
So, at the first mile mark, we've got a time of 5 minutes, 14 seconds, which is right on the money. That's going out pretty fast, but the first mile out, the first and most important thing that these runners want to do is get out clean and have some free running room.
It's critical to get out fast at the start, to go with the leaders, if that's your intention, to run with the lead pack, because they'll slow down as much as you will. Everyone will get tired at the same time, but if you're 50 or 100 yards back, you may never catch up. It's difficult to catch up. It's easy to stay with a pack, but it's difficult to catch a pack. It seems to me that this is a big progressive step in women's running. This was one of the first times I have actually seen a race with this quantity of women and this caliber of women at this distance, where there was some real strategic running going on. There was some very intelligent running going on. Usually in the past, we've seen races where a few people go out too fast and then burn out at the mile. They don't really know what they're doing. It seems like the runners sort of string out in hopeless abandon, and they finish in that order. And this race was not like that at all. The women's running has really moved into another whole plane, and it's really exciting to see. It was like watching a competitive men's race, but they've had a lot more experience at this. There they were, 4 miles all together. you know, 8 of them. It could have been anyone's race, but they were all working off each other. They all had this mutual respect for one another, and they were all running intelligent races. Nobody was going to take it out too fast, and yet they were all looking for their best times. They weren't dogging it either.
Now let's take a look at the 4-mile mark. In the lead, we've got number 4, and that's Karen Bridges from Stillwater, Oklahoma. He was third at the national.
Making a move in the latter stages of a race can really work to your benefit, you know, if you're capable of doing it and if you're confident. You don't waver at all. If it means passing somebody, you pass them quickly and you put enough distance so that they don't go with you, they don't draft off you. Joan Benoit said she knew at 5.5 miles she had to make a move. She had to break away, just, you know, to get that distance between them. When Joan Benoit made her move, I think she did take the 3 of them with her. They pulled away, but maybe because Joan was making the intentional move, it became her game, and they were going to have to try to play it. The first 3 runners were all from North Carolina. They knew each other. They knew how each other ran, and they would each say the same thing. Joan said, I knew I had to stay on Mary because if she's anywhere near me at the end, she can out-sprint me. Mary was saying, I know I have to stick with Joan Benoit. She's so strong. I know I had to sit with her. You know, and Ellison Goodall knew who she was up against. They all knew.
And I decided, if you're going to run, you got to get up with them now. And I made a move and got up with them and then just stuck tight. And then from there on, it was Joni, Mary, and me pretty much fighting it out. It seemed like the 3 of us. I think Marty was pretty close behind us. But the 3 of us were just going strong. Really, it felt great. It was great fun. I just felt really good. But Joni was tough, and she put in a really strong lift down Commonwealth and really blew me off. I couldn't keep up with her. If I hadn't let that distance separate, it could have been a closer finish because I never really gained it.
Joan Benoit in the lead.
And she stayed really strong, and she wasn't going to let me gain
Ellison
it.
Goodall is in second place. 32:55 is the time right now. This is very, very fast time, everybody. Joan Benoit, Cape Elizabeth, Maine, is going to win the National Bonnie Bell 10-kilometer championship. Joan Benoit, everybody. Ellison Goodall, second place. Her time, 33 minutes and 20 seconds. Look how close this is. Let these runners know you're around, everybody. Mary Shea is in third place. From North Carolina, number 11, Mary Shea in third place. Marty Cooksey in fourth place. Number 6, Marty Cooksey. Number 4 is Karen Bridges from Stillwater, Oklahoma, winner of the Denver Bonnie Bell 10K race.
I thought the race as a whole just went splendid. It was just a beautiful production. The whole race went so smoothly. You know, the only thing that went wrong, of course, was that funny little incident where the car drove over the finish line in 15th place, and everybody was baffled as to how it even got there. But, you know, it was no big tragedy.
Were there a lot of people on the course?
It is true. The camaraderie is great. It's just, I mean, if I take anything away from running, it's the friends I've made just make it so worthwhile. And they're also warm. I think runners are really, you know, warm, neat, stable people.
As we would pass, we would come this way, and most of the runners were going that way. You know, they were all going like this. I don't know about you guys, but I was going, yeah, way to go.
When the pack came by here.
Although, when the gun goes off, it's not crush, kill, destroy, but competitive spirit comes forth, and you go to it. You're your own man then, and you run.
Oldest competitor in today's race, 77 years old, Ruth Rothbard.
I began my racing at the age of 75. No, it was 76. 76 years old. And since then, I really enjoyed running. It did something to my way of life that I've never had before, never experienced it. I'm hoping to do more and better in time to come. And I think I will. I really do. I am a runner.
So Duke, the one woman was from Duke, but I couldn't figure out if the other women from North Carolina were also from Duke or from other triangle schools. Yeah, it's kind of I got the date way wrong, 1979, and a female filmmaker, and got distribution from Cornet. That's awesome. Thanks for tuning in today. It's great to see everybody, and we will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday, right? I should say that if you're in the Triangle area tomorrow, I will be introducing Spaceballs at the Natural Science Museum and showing a film from my collection beforehand, as we do. Then we'll have trivia questions, and you'll be able to ask an expert about things, I think space-related is what I'm guessing. The experts are staff from the Museum of Natural Sciences, and really knowledgeable, really dynamic people. So I enjoy kind of doing that. So join us there. I believe we start at 7. And yeah, have fun. Thanks for watching. Hit the thumbs up, hit the like button. You can also subscribe. That's a great way to support us. You can use the super thanks button, ko-fi.com/avgeeks or patreon.com/avgeeks. Those are other great ways to support us. Everybody have a great rest of your Thursday. And we will see you soon. Take care.